Hello, everybody. My name is Hayden Naylor, and today me and Faye will be presenting on the ancient civilization of the Dene slash Athabaskan people. So here is our presentation. We hope you enjoy it today. So to start off, the Dene slash Athabaskan people have a rich history and culture that is as old as time. While the specifics of their history, how they came to be, and how they survived is not fully known, researchers have uncovered many great mysteries and have set many theories. One theory suggests that they originally migrated over to the American continent from Asia thousands of years ago across a once existing Bering Sea land bridge. These hunter-gatherer nomads of modern-day Canadian and Alaskan interiors have quite the story to tell about their lives, spirituality, and the environmental conditions that they endured. The information provided in this presentation is meant to give insight into just how life might have looked like for these people and what factors might have influenced them the most. So as you can see on the previous map, the continent on which they lived on is North America, and the general region is the northern boreal area of North America. The latitude in which their homeland would fall is roughly 60 degrees north and pretty much anything above. A central area they lived in was the Mackenzie River Valley of Canada. And according to the website Dene Nation, the first northern Dene inhabited this region over 30,000 years ago, and some still trace their ancestry to their native Dene roots. This large region of northern Canada and Alaska is known as the Yukon and Northwest Territories as we know them today. The climate is Arctic, and it is also known for its boreal forested areas, as stated earlier. And according to Wikipedia, the Dene were the first people to settle in what is now known as the Northwest Territories. Since the traditional homeland of the Dene slash Athabaskan people lies within the Northern Territories of Alaska and Canada, these people had a much different viewpoint of astronomy than that of the traditional Greek civilization or others of the like. This area of the world is unique in that during the winter months, they face prolonged hours of darkness where stars are much more visible, and in the summer months they face quite the opposite where there was extended period of prolonged hours of dark or light. So along with these prolonged hours of darkness or light, they also saw vastly different patterns of star movement due to the fact that their civilization's extreme northern latitude, that they lived in that extreme northern latitude, meaning that more often than not, the stars that they saw seemed to rotate around the sky rather than to rise and fall. For many years, the extent of knowledge known about the Dene Athabaskan people and their beliefs and traditions about astronomy was not as well known, but thanks to further research, much more has been discovered. One common theme is that they believed in a single human-like figure constellation, commonly referred to as the Traveler, in which the constellation moves or travels throughout the sky on a journey of sorts. This constellation holds significant spiritual value to these people and is also held very sacred to them. They also use the stars for things like navigation, time telling, and weather prediction. Despite having a few known written beliefs about this society and its astronomical relations, it can be inferred that it was still impactful and played a significant role in their civilization. Now, you might ask yourself, how was a civilization affected by different geological factors and things like plate tectonics? Well, after doing some research and viewing the map of tectonic plate boundaries of the world, it appears that the Dene Athabaskan people would have traditionally lived on the North American plate and its northern reaches. They are close to the boundary between the North American plate and the Juan de Fuca plate as well. And according to the National Park Service, the boundary between these two plates converges, and the Juan de Fuca plate is subducting below the North American plate. This area of the Pacific Northwest and southern British Columbia is known as the Cascadia Subduction Zone, and is responsible for many geological features and natural disasters that have happened in the area. Off to the west of coastal Alaska also lies a hotbed of seismic activity at the boundary lines of the North American plate and the Pacific plate. In this area, there are actually all three boundary types taking place, resulting in large amounts of volcanic activity and earthquakes. It's near the infamous Ring of Fire area, if you're familiar with that. And yeah, it results in a lot of volcanic activity and earthquakes. Some anthropologists have even hypothesized that volcanic eruptions may have even contributed to the fact that some of the Dene Athabaskan people began to migrate into the American Southwest. As far as the use and presence of various rocks and minerals in the Dene Athabaskan culture, seems to be more limited than that of other ancient civilizations. These people traditionally lived in hunter-gatherer societies where they moved around too often to truly build permanent structures out of rock or stone. They did, however, at the advent of trade with early explorers, use copper to make things such as daggers for hunting, and they primarily resided within their primary area they resided in was the Mackenzie River Valley, and is kind of a geologically interesting in that it is a permafrost area with large amounts of bedrock and rivers that carry sediment throughout the area.
Hello, my name is Faye, and I'll be talking on the following topics: earthquakes, volcanoes, and mountains, and how this environment affected the Dene Athabaskan people. First, I would like to start with earthquakes. There is not much known about earthquakes and how it affected the early civilization of the Dene Athabaskan people. There are, however, recent earthquakes that occurred which affected nearby native communities in Alaska. The second is volcano, and about 1200 years ago, a massive eruption called the White River Ash changed the way people in northern Canada hunted and gathered in areas affected by volcanic ash. The ashes fell about 1 meter thick, and it fell in really high beds, which affected the way of living of the Athabaskan people. Livelihoods in Yukon and Northwest Territories were probably affected the most by impacts of volcanic ash on their hunting and fishing activities. These ashes affected the way of living, and it also affected the water system, which in turn affected fishing. The next topic is mountain ranges. And the mountain ranges that are located in this region include the Alaska Range, the St. Elias, Mount Wrangell, Selwyn Mountains, Brook Range, and Mackenzie Mountains. The lands the Dene Athabaskan people called home are a region that spans from Brooks Mountain Range south to the Kenai Peninsula, and from the Canadian border west to the Nulato Hills. My next topics are rivers and erosion processes. There are several rivers in the territories of the Dene Athabaskan people, and these rivers include the Athabasca River, Yukon, the Copper River, Peace, Delta, Laird, Mackenzie, and Slave rivers, including others. These rivers were mainly used for modes of transportation, water sources, and for food. The Dene Athabaskan people were affected by erosion because of the climate changes and the weather conditions that were experienced or that are experienced in the Alaska Canadian area. Erosions occurred on the rivers, banks, glaciers, and mountain areas. Now we'll be looking at oceans and coastlines. Many of the Dene Athabaskan people are located in the inland areas, far from the coastlines, but they are surrounded by the Pacific and Arctic Ocean. Because they live in the inland areas, they are not highly affected by the harshness and the really hard conditions of the ocean and its impact on the coastal lands. The Dene people prefer to live near the rivers instead of the harsh coastline areas. We'll now be talking about weather, climate, and biomes. Over many years, climate change began to rapidly increase, but the Dene people were able to adjust and withstand the hard weather conditions. The Athabaskan people have lived in this environment characterized by forests, rivers, and extreme climate for centuries. Their ancestors were thousands of years before them. As might be expected, their way of life has incorporated a series of adaptations to the environment, and many aspects of the culture can be traced to those adaptations. Some of the biomes includes those of boreal forest, as you can see in the picture that is below. There is also subarctic tundra and wetlands. Here are some desirable features and stewardships of the Dene Athabaskan people. They were highly engaged in being stewards of the land. They were deeply intertwined in their religious beliefs and their lands and what it did for them. They also protected their lands by practicing limited hunting and also leaving no trace, which shows their respect for their lands.
All right, well, thank you for listening to our presentation today. The ancient Dene Athabaskan peoples have quite the story to tell about themselves. The information presented in this project goes to show just how impacted they were by the natural environment and the symbiotic relationship they had with the land. While the area of the world that they lived in could be cold and harsh at times, it could also be fairly mild, and it seemed to always provide them with what they needed. That, of course, means that they had to adapt, however. So, just what humans specialize in, they adapted, changed, and evolved over time. They had what it took to preserve and not only survive in their environment, but to thrive in it. Setbacks from natural disasters and extreme weather could not faze them. They were true to their beliefs and values and trusted in their gods. May it be a lesson to all of us that despite the unprecedented challenges that may arise in our lives, we can conquer and overcome. Not much is known about these people, but what we do know is that they are forever remembered by their descendants and those who hold respect to them just as they had respect for their world and what had been provided for them by the land. They may be gone, but their story will continue to live on forever. Thank you for watching.